I just came across some great footage of Holger Rune that I'd like to share with you. Let me show you some full speed shots first. You can get a sense here of kind of the intensity, swing speed. These first couple are going to be forehand drives slash kind of rally balls, topspin swings. And then I'm going to skip ahead in just a second. So you can see here like some kind of medium paced intensity, some medium plus, and then a couple in here. A couple of these are kind of higher intensity. And now I want you to look at a little bit later on in the clip, he hits some different shots. And see if off the bat you can figure out what is he doing here with these next couple of shots. Watch this. Here. Should be able to figure it out right here. What's he doing? What's the point scenario on these last two? These are very, very different swings. On these two, he's giving overheads to his partner on the other side. This is like a pre-match, warm-up. And on these first couple, these are ground stroke, neutral kind of rally ball exchanges, just baseline exchange back and forth. So I'm going to pause real quick. I'm going to set up a side-by-side to do quick analysis of these different types of shots. All right, here we've got a side-by-side. One of these is one of those lobs, and one of these is one of the drives. And it's pretty easy to figure out which is which, right, at first glance. On one of these, he's stepping more forwards, and you can just tell by the blur on the ball, there's a lot more acceleration and intensity going on. The other one, he's kind of on his back foot, momentum leaning back a little bit. But let me point out a couple things I think are really interesting about taking a deep dive into this like extreme contrast, right? I think it's really interesting looking at, like, one of these is the slowest, most defensive shot that he's probably going to hit all day in this training session. And the other one, he's really stepping into it and unwinding and being really aggressive. And I think it's really interesting to look at the similarities, but also the contrast in swing path and racket face angle and things like that. So I think it's fascinating. Even though these are such different shots, look at where his hips are facing and look at where his chest is facing, and they're virtually identical. Yes, his stance is a little bit different, and yes, the direction of his momentum is obviously different by quite a bit between the two, but he's unwound his body the same amount, even though on this one on the left, he's hitting a very defensive, very high, very slow lob. He's still started with a coil with his upper body, just like he did with the one where he was planning on stepping in and really unwinding. So you can see his setup is virtually identical, a little bit difference in width of stance and stuff like that. But in terms of where his hips are facing, where his shoulders are facing, how much rotation and coil that he's set up, it's very, very close to the same. And then if we go forward to contact, he has unwound his kinetic chain the same amount for both shots. On one of them, he's using a lot more intensity and a lot more acceleration, and the other one is very calm and smooth, but he's gone to the trouble of unwinding his kinetic chain anyway on the left, even though he knows he doesn't need lots of power and lots of acceleration. He just has a fundamental habit of using his full body, even when he's not hitting the ball hard. And this is why, let me interject here really quickly, and then we're going to go back to some other comparison. This is why so many normal tennis players are so bad at short courts, meaning, you know, the mini tennis rallies inside the service boxes. It's pretty universally kind of shunned and like scorned among everyday tennis players. And the reason why most tennis players aren't comfortable with it is because they don't use their full body. And I know that sounds like a contradiction because we're so close. We don't need to use our whole body. We want to hit these balls softly, right? Here's the thing though, when you try to hit the ball softly using just small body parts, things get rigid and tight and kind of abrupt and kind of jerky, moving the racket back and forth. It's only when using the entire kinetic chain that you can be calm and smooth and relaxed with your arm, your shoulder, your forearm, your hand, your wrist, and as a byproduct, calmly, smoothly, relaxed, just keep the ball inside the service boxes. So it's fascinating for me to see like a very, very defensive, slow shot here, using the same amount of coil, using the same amount of uncoil, even though all he's doing is just putting up a duck lob so his partner on the other side can hit a couple of overheads. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, so now Here's where the rubber really meets the road. We're looking at a frame here right about contact on each of these, and I want you to notice the difference in the angle of the racket face. On the aggressive drive, his strings are slightly facing down, maybe just by a couple of degrees, maybe like 2 or 3 degrees or something. And on the lob, his strings are, I know this doesn't look significant, but 1 or 2 degrees in change of racket face angle, it makes a huge difference in the trajectory of the ball. So when his strings are open by like, I don't know, maybe close to 10 degrees here, somewhere between 5-10 degrees probably, that creates a much higher loft, especially when combined with, here's really the big difference between these two swings. Watch the difference in path. Look at how low below the point of contact. I mean, he's like, the tip of his racket is like 3 feet below where the incoming ball is. And so he's making a very aggressive vertical upward path with his racket. That's not only giving the ball some topspin, but it's also giving the ball some lift. And when you combine that with the open racket face, we get a very significantly upward trajectory of the ball. And that's what creates a lob. Meanwhile, over here on the drive, look at how there's very little drop of the racket head. He is coming from below the point of contact with the middle of his strings, but not by very much. Much more of his energy here is going forwards. That's what gives the ball all the energy, the power, the drive, the penetration through the court. And when you combine that with a slightly closed angle with the racket face, we get a ball that has a little bit of forward rotation, but not much, and a lot of force moving forward through the court, a lot of power, a lot of penetration. And keeping the racket face angle closed is going to keep this trajectory of the ball much more level and flat and straight, and that's going to keep it inside the lines on the other side. So there's a kind of a little bit of an analysis between 2 far extremes. A high, slow defensive shot, a low, hard, aggressive, certainly by our standards, more offensive shot, like at the very least like a rally shot. And it's fascinating to me to see that the body's being used, not the same intensity, but in the same ballpark range of motion, but the path of the racket and the angle of the strings are wildly different. And that's ultimately what creates the different trajectory, the different spins, the different heights, the different depths. Pretty cool to look at. I always love doing kind of side-by-side analysis. You can learn so much about what the ingredients are that come together to create different outputs and different results. And the more you can understand the cause and effect between those different things, the more accurately you can deconstruct your own results and then get better, more consistent, more precise outcomes for your shots as you study and understand the relationship closer and closer. Hopefully this was helpful. Thanks for watching today. I'll talk to you again soon.